Welcome back into the LFC Transfer Room. It's Jack. It's the Scousers Abroad. You weren't abroad for a little bit, Ta. You were in the United Kingdom very recently. We're back for that episode after a bit of a few weeks off towards the back end of the international break. Ta, how are you doing?
Fantastic. It was an absolutely brilliant trip, Jack. I'm sorry for my attempted British accent there, but no, I was in UK for 10 days, got to visit some of the most iconic landmarks, saw friends that I haven't met since high school, and most importantly, got to witness the Reds pick up 3 points on the road at their Emirates. So,
yeah, unbelievable. Unbelievable. That away section, I was very jealous, Ta. I was seeing your Instagram stories. You were heading to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, seeing your boy Heung-min Son. I mean, I was jealous.
Anfield as well. Let's not forget that.
So favorite stadium, not in terms of what it meant, because obviously it would be Anfield because it's Anfield.
Yeah.
Nicest stadium that you were at.
Has to be the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I mean, you look at the technology involved, the fact that it's the newest as well, the locker rooms, the way that NFL games can be played in that stadium. It's just very techy, and I think that it's modern and something that the game needs.
Yeah, it was. They spent a lot of money on that stadium, so you'd hope that it was a nice venue. Today, in our discussion, Ta, is looking back at that match against Nottingham Forest. Felt like it was ages ago. Back when were you in the United Kingdom when that match happened, or were you traveling there?
Sunday, March 20th was the day I left UK, so I didn't watch the game. I was on the plane.
Gotcha. And then we'll talk about international breaks content. Players having some big impacts. Looking ahead to Watford, and then obviously the quarterfinals of the Champions League, Liverpool versus Benfica. We probably won't touch on Man City. We'll probably have a show before then, Ta, I have to imagine. But there's a lot of exciting things to talk about. Let's poke back a little bit. Nottingham Forest, that match, advancing, it was scrappy. It did enough. What were your overall takeaways from that match? And kind of, it was one of many, it feels like in the last few weeks, of matches where Liverpool have been not great, but enough to win the match.
Yeah, it was the first meeting between the two sides since April 5th, 1999. I was less than a month old the last time these two sides met. And it was a nervy game. I thought that although Liverpool rotated the side, Joe Gomez played at right back, Konate shifted in for that center back spot, Costas at left back, Harvey got a game as well at that attacking wide role. Same thing for Oxlade-Chamberlain. Although it was a rotated side, you imagine Liverpool's team would still go out there, exert themselves, and dominate the game. But Nottingham Forest could have easily took a 1-0 lead 75 minutes into the match. I mean, after a goalless first half, Philip Zinker-Nagel, is that how you pronounce his name, went through with a glorious chance. Reminded me of Odegaard's opportunity that he had in that Arsenal game where another opportunity for the other team, they could have converted and took the lead. However, luck was on Liverpool's side. He squandered his opportunity, and then classic Liverpool, Jack, against the run of play, Costas Tsimikas whips one in, and who else? Yeah. He's from Portugal. Yes, Diogo Jota scores it in.
So you talk about that, and there was the Odegaard chance. There was a chance for Nottingham in that match where Liverpool have kind of been on a knife's edge, where there are these moments where either big saves, big defensive moments, big individual impacts keep Liverpool in matches, and they end up winning even if it's against the run of play. Obviously an international break will separate those matches with what comes up next: Watford, Benfica, Man City, Benfica, Man City. How concerning is that for you? Because I think we had touched on it a little bit prior to your trip to the UK about how porous Liverpool were, at least in terms of quality of performance. How concerning is it for you?
A little bit concerned, but I think the fact that the past 3 games, it was all clean sheets, whether it's Brighton away, Arsenal away, or Nottingham Forest away. All 3 away games, you come out of those matches not conceding goal. There's going to be, I guess, squeaky bum moments in every football match where the other team gets a chance in front of goal. But when you have Alisson and when you have the likes of Van Dijk and Konate and Matty playing, you feel that composure a bit. And these chances, sometimes you don't get worried as much. And I thought that every game you're going to be having to dig deep and defend. So the fact that we came out of those 3 matches not conceding goal, it's an improvement. It's a good sign.
Yeah, so obviously we had those matches before the international break. The international break came. It's done, I believe. Maybe a few more matches today. This is Wednesday, the 30th that we're recording this. Is there anything players that stood out for you over the international break in terms of individual quality or team performance?
17 Reds were called up for international duty. I mean, is that the most you can probably say?
And that's even with a few players held back for injury, especially Trent Alexander-Arnold, amongst quite a few.
Could have probably been 20, I think, if everyone was fit. So in terms of player form, I'll be honest, don't really care too much because it's an international break. I just want them to be wrapped around cotton wool and coming back as fit as possible. But if I have to pick Luis Diaz, he impressed for Colombia. Unfortunately, Colombia won't be going to the World Cup. They finished just 1 spot shy of that final inter-conference qualification, however CONMEBOL works. So that 5th place team will go and play another region. Luis Diaz scored in that win over Bolivia 3-0. And we also got to talk about Sadio Mane leading his nation, Africa Cup of Nations, and now to the World Cup. So Senegal's only 3rd appearance in the World Cup, back-to-back as well. And I got a feel for Mo Salah. I'm not sure if he was in a nightclub or a football stadium, but those lights were just beaming. I have to go out and say that FIFA, you have to take action at this. It's totally unacceptable. It happens at too many grounds. Africa, Asia, other parts of the world as well. There has to be a ban for people bringing in these laser beams to stadiums.
I mean, it had an impact, an obvious impact on who went to the World Cup. I mean, you have people discussing, maybe Senegal were better over the 2 legs, which I didn't watch enough of it to be able to give my opinion on it. That's just where the majority opinion I've seen has been Senegal was the better team over 180 minutes. But the issue is that, you have to put that aside and say that they weren't better in terms of goals. It was 1-1. You now have the deciding factor is penalties. It was not a level playing field for the penalties in the slightest. I mean, Salah, his face was green. It looked like the Incredible Hulk was about to burst out of his kit. It was remarkable. I mean, they missed the first 2 penalties. I think the first 4 penalties were all missed in that shootout, and it just had an impact on things, Tom. And I don't think, and people obviously will say, well, Egypt did it in the first leg as well, and they did. That's very true. But the bigger impact was how Senegal did it. So I don't know what FIFA could do considering they didn't they didn't punish Egypt originally for it. It's really tough to crack down upon. So it's unfortunate, but I think the takeaway from that is, well, Salah after AFCON was in kind of poor form. He was scoring goals still, but he was missing more chances than he was missing prior to AFCON. Is this missing out on the World Cup? Is it going to be a bounce like a angry Salah, or is it going to be almost a down in the dumps Salah? Where do you kind of see him in this fork in the road? Where do you see him taken?
It can go either way, really, but I think it'll motivate him even more because you look at what he did after losing in the AFCON. I think he was back within like 2 days. Within like less than 48 hours, he's already back training with Liverpool. And Klopp came out and say like, oh, this guy's an absolute professional. And he is an absolute professional. And Liverpool should do everything they can to try and keep him at the club. Because you look at Salah, he's such a brilliant asset for the Reds. I mean, everything he does, goals, assists, off the field stuff, he's just a superstar. And I just think that not going to the World Cup this winter, it'll give him that time to rehab himself, take care of his body, and come back fully fit for Liverpool.
Yeah, I especially want it now that he's not going to the World Cup. I want him next year. I don't want a 2-month break motivated after everyone because you think about it, right? The best sides in the world will be sending players to the World Cup. So after the World Cup, there will be a major hangover for quite a few players in the winter of next year. I want a healthy, rested Mo Salah coming out of that break, ready to just tear it up, hat tricks in every game that he comes back into. The contract discussion has been done time and time again on what he needs to be done. Where I stand on it now at this point, Todd, is just I don't know the numbers that are being discussed, so it's tough for me to kind of put myself in a spot. I hope that they figure out a way to keep him at the club because you want players like Salah at the club. But for Mane, the winner in this qualification process, I feel great for him. To be able to lead his nation for that. He looked brilliant at times, at a fantastic penalty. It's big for him. I'm very happy for him. It's tough because obviously you feel sad for Salah, commiserations, but it's also remarkable that you have two fantastic African players. It's a brutal reality though. They had to face each other to qualify for. It shows how competitive that is because of the limited amount of spots are available. Before we move on to after international break, any other players that stood out to you? I think two guys for me that I'll mention is Alisson and Fabinho.
Mm-hmm.
They played big roles in helping Brazil to a record amount of points in South American qualifying. 45 points from 17 matches, I believe, is the figure there. Incredible form, incredible turnover there, and it's just been a remarkable sighting there. So I think it was 14 wins, 3 draws were the numbers for them. But I think that I'm glad that there was mostly, no injury, no issues from the international break. But Taf, you had anyone else you wanted to mention before we move on?
My boy Takumi Minamino leading Japan to yet another World Cup appearance. I mean, other than that, honestly, I thought that most Liverpool players did okay. And yeah, honestly, like I mentioned earlier on, all I care about is that hopefully they come back all fit and they're ready for a very, very important month of April.
Very important. So it starts with the biggest match of all against Watford.
I love that tease that you just like bring it in, but no, it's the first of 8 cup finals in April. We have 8 cup finals to look forward to, and you start with Watford. I mean, you look at where they are league position-wise, 18th, played 29 games, 22 points, won only once out of their last 5 outings. So, Jack, if you look at the table and there's a team you don't want to play, it has to be that bottom 3 because they're going to be fighting for their lives, Jack. And I think after international break, you want someone to easily ease back into what you do, get back to the usual outing and the usual way of playing out there. But Watford, they're just going to be coming for Liverpool. I know that in the first meeting between these two sides, Liverpool thrashed them 5-0. Salah scored an absolute worldie. Firmino with the hat-trick, Mane with the goal early on. But this Watford team, they're under their 10th manager in the past 5 seasons, believe it or not.
Unbelievable.
And it's good old Roy Hodgson returning to Anfield. So he's going to have something up his sleeves. He's going to try to work his magic. He's going to try to play that defensive style, sit back and hit on the counter. And I think that at this point, Watford, they almost have nothing to lose. I predict them to go down. So they're going to be out there fighting, trying their best. And Liverpool just have to be careful. At least it's a home game, though. That's the good part, is that with traveling and everything, Liverpool can get back to the AXA Training Center, work together as a team, and go out there and try to get a result against Watford. So at least it's a home game. But I'm not too happy that we have to play a team that's ranked in 18th space.
And it's interesting that you dislike that because I think that I would love to play a side without a ton of quality that have a lot of managerial turnover like Watford. I think that no matter who you play in the Premier League, there will always be a risk of them because they're all some of the best in the world. They're the top 0.1% of players that do this, of people that do this. So there always is going to be that risk and that threat. For me, it's just I'm incredibly glad this is the match back home. It's 12:30 kick in the UK, which those are always a bit dodgy because they're so early in the day, very early in the day for us Scousers Abroad. 7:30 a.m. here. Are you looking forward to that, Ta? I'm not looking forward to that.
I mean, I'm probably gonna get up and watch the second half. Let's be honest, but the match will end 30 minutes before Manchester City, and that's the big factor is that Liverpool have not been top of the table this calendar year.
Ooh,
so
that's a good point.
That's
a draw, even a draw. I mean, you obviously don't want a draw.
You're gonna go for the win, but a win does put that extra pressure on City, and City go away to good old Burnley with Sean Dyche over there, so could be a factor going forward.
Well, look, I mean, City, especially with the big decider. I don't want to say it's a title decider, but the weekend after next, it'll be Liverpool versus Manchester City. If Man City drop points to Burnley, are they away or home? They're away at Burnley.
Yeah.
That's never a fun one to play. I back City actually kind of heavily in that one, to be honest. I think they'll probably smack a few past them. But if they drop points and Liverpool win, all of a sudden you were under immense pressure at the Etihad to get a result, because a loss no longer is, all right, I'm behind in the title race slightly. You're almost out of it at that point, because then you're 2 matches behind in terms of how much you need to catch up on. It's we got to put the pressure on, though. I think playing first is a huge advantage. Putting the pressure on. Are there any players you want to see, don't want to see, at least in that one? It's tough to kind of predict a lineup so many days out in advance, because injuries especially could pick up, something like that. No Trent, most likely. He might be able to make the Man City match. Who do you want at that right back spot?
I think at this point you go Joe Gomez. We saw that Jurgen Klopp preferred Joe Gomez to play there at the Nottingham Forest game. So, yeah, he'll just slide in there. He played the last Premier League game that Joe Gomez started at right back was Norwich. I think we did a watch-along for that, Jack. And Liverpool won 3-1 that game. Wasn't the best outing. Obviously, it's a big drop-off. Everyone's going to be a big drop-off from Trent. But a respectable performance, and I think that he'll do just fine.
I think that the big thing with Gomez is that if you play him, it means that there's not going to be much overlap. And that means that it's going to free Salah up to have a lot of space, because if you're not packing the players in that area of the pitch, then you all of a sudden can, give Salah a lot more space one-on-one with players to dribble at them, to kind of just operate with a hair more space. I would love for him to get a goal or two in that one. I agree with you. Gomez should play. I'm maybe rest Matip for that match. Obviously, he didn't go away for international duty, but I think you got to go hard for that Benfica first leg. Yes. So in the second leg, you can almost ease off a little bit.
We're going to see maybe a rotation at the back line, one in midfield and one up top, just to keep the players fresh and also ready to go out there and pick up the big win away at Benfica.
So, predictions before we go talk about Benfica very briefly, Ta. What do you expect from this Watford match? Are you nervous? Because I know you mentioned that you don't want to face a bottom three side. What do you predict for the match?
Believe it or not, the last time Liverpool played Watford, I just joined at LFC Transfer Room. So I was like fresh. You asked me for my first ever prediction on the show. I was like, I'm going to go with a 1-0 away win. Turns out we won 5-0. So I'm going to keep it consistent, Jack. I'm going to go with a 1-0 home win and hope for the best. Hope Liverpool come out and just destroy Watford in the end.
1-0s just sound like they're not going to be fun to watch this year for the rest of the season. Because, as you mentioned, there are cup finals on the entire stretch. Every match that you play gets you an inch closer to a title. Because Liverpool, they're in a title race for Man City. It's in their hands, technically. If you win the final 9 matches, you win the title. They're in their hands with the Champions League, as it is with the FA Cup. 1 trophy down, 3 potentially more to fight for. It's a really exciting time. But in that Champions League match, you have Benfica. I'm fascinated for this one, Ta. They're 12 points off Porto in the Portuguese league. We obviously can't lend too much credence to league form, league performance, because it's the Champions League. They're one-off matches a lot of the time. But I mean, considering that handily dealt with Porto back in the group stage, we had the best draw.
Yes,
I think undoubtedly almost. Should this just be a simple getting through, or do you anticipate some challenges being posed by Benfica?
I think I agree with you. It should be an easy getting through. You mentioned 12 points off Porto. Their center-back pairing is Jan Vertonghen and Otamendi.
That's a throwback.
That is like classic, 16, 17, or 17, 18 Tottenham and City almost, because you look at what they have in common, it's not a lot of pace, Jack. And Salah, Mane, Diaz are just rubbing their hands together. Whenever the ball goes through, whenever it's a one-on-one opportunity, they're just going to be taking Vertonghen and Otamendi for a ride. And I think that it's a very favorable matchup. You look at the draw and who else Liverpool could have got. Avoided City, like you said, you don't want it. You don't want to have anything to do with City.
If City had happened, that would have 4 straight matches against City.
I don't really mind that, but
you don't mind that?
I like the craziness. I like the craziness of games sometimes.
I wouldn't have had a pulse for 2 weeks practically.
Okay,
that would have been brutal.
You don't have Bayern Munich. You don't have Real Madrid as well, and you avoid Chelsea. So very favorable draw, and I'm actually surprised Benfica got to the quarterfinals. They sneaked past Ajax. It was a game that I think they had only 4 shots in the entire match, I believe.
I just had it up.
They just sat back and they hit on the counter, and Darwin Nunez got the lone goal of the match, and it proved to be the vital one that saw them go through. And what's very important is the fact that Liverpool have that first leg away. I think that takes a lot of pressure off. If you go away and actually don't get a good result, you have that home leg in the second leg, and there's no away goals as well. So it could help if you're playing that second leg at home and it does go to extra time. Hopefully it doesn't go to extra time and Liverpool kill the game off early on in the first match. But yeah, like I mentioned, it's a game that Liverpool should easily take care of.
If it's similar to the Inter one where it was first away, handed 2-0, not mistaken.
2-0, yes.
And then a 1-0 defeat at Anfield, but you're fine with a 1-0 defeat if it gets you through.
It's a result business in the end, Jack.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter about the performance. You win after 2 legs, and that's what gets you through.
Yeah, you would love these long records that you can bring up, but at the end of the day, 5 years from now, we look back on this season.
Nobody's going to care.
Nobody's caring that you beat Inter Milan 2-1 on aggregate. You didn't lose 1-0 at Anfield. You beat them 2-1 on aggregate because it was 180 minutes goals combined between the two. You mentioned it, Benfica in that second leg against Ajax, just 31% possession, 4 shots total, just 1 on target. But it was the ultimate decider from Darwin Nunez.
That's Champions League for you right there.
Exactly, and that's what we're not writing them off entirely, but we are saying that it should be, Liverpool at their best, they should be dealing with them, and that's just the simple fact of it, because you expect them to be able to, against a side that sits deep, just use the creativity of players that you have available. If you can get Trent back for that second leg, especially, it would be really helpful if that Anfield they sit back deep. But I'm fascinated with what Klopp decides to do if he does not have Trent for that first leg away from home, a side that might sit a bit more compact, a bit deeper. Because I think Liverpool, if Benfica try and match Liverpool in the press, being progressive with it, with that center back duo,
they'll be played off the park.
You back yourself in that one. So I think you'd hope that you can almost bait them into a 50-50 match.
Yeah.
Because I think maybe you start Tsimikas, maybe a more creative option against a low block. Because I think Robertson's a better guy in a big high press, tempo heavy match. Maybe you try a creative guy like that. Maybe you put Tsimikas at right back. I'm going to float that to you really quick. So one of the last things we talk about is he had a nice right-footed assist for Jota for the goal against Nottingham Forest. Tell me,
no,
right back?
No,
why not?
Jack, no, he's a left-footed player. Imagine
James Milner plays left back.
Listen. Imagine what that will do to Joe Gomez's confidence if Jurgen Klopp says, "You know what, Joe? You sit on the bench. I want to play Costas at right back," and he's just gonna be cutting to his left, whipping it in, cutting it to his left, whipping it in every single time he gets to the byline. So no, I think you go with Joe Gomez. You don't do anything crazy in the Champions League this late into the season, Jack.
It would be very Pep Guardiola-esque to just have a crazy I have an idea, a special idea. Let's just stick a left footer, pull a James Milner. Here's what you play: James Milner at left back, Costas at right back, and you have the João Cancelo. They just tuck inside, most compact, no width provided.
Inverted. It's inverted.
Just inverted. For that first thing against Benfica, it is away from home. How optimistic are you for that one?
Very optimistic. I'm gonna say 2-0. It's gonna be similar to that Inter game in the round of 16. I think. Can be a bit of a cagey start. People can get a bit nervous, and then someone, I don't care if it's Mane, Salah, or Jota, breaks the deadlock and cruise control from then on.
And so we've got, I didn't know for my predictions, actually, for the Watford one. I think it's going to be 3-1. I think Watford will score first, actually.
Oh.
I think it'll be a case of where everyone's going crazy, like, oh my God, Watford, could they do what they did back in
1920.
In 1920, where obviously it didn't impact the title result, but they thumped Liverpool at Vicarage Road. And then Liverpool will get a dodgy equalizer, and then they'll just take the match over at that point.
Yeah.
And I think that's my prediction for that one. I think for Benfica, I'm going to go the exact same as you. I'm going to go 2-0. I think Salah gets 2 in that Watford one. I think it's 1. I think Mane gets 1 as well.
Okay.
Or maybe actually, I'm going to go Luis Diaz gets 1 in that match against Benfica. He's back in his home, not in his home country, but the country that he used to play in Portugal. I think he gets probably the first goal in that one. But I think a 3-1 and a 2-0, and you're heading into that City match. Very, very optimistic. We'll be back for a preview of that match a week from now, I should say. Anything else, Todd, before we run out of here?
Jack, 2 cup finals starting already. Let's get things rolling.
We do these matches we do these episodes, I should say, for important matches. It's nothing but important matches down the stretch.
I'm just looking at the schedule, Jack. We're going to be here every single week.
It's exciting. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. We've been doing some great content, a lot of great watch-alongs for some of the most important matches we've seen all season long, but a lot of good work from the guys going on. A Cody Hakpo analysis video coming from me very, very soon. Some great insight onto him from some Dutch football experts. But that's going to do it for our video here today on the channel. That's been Ta. I've been Jack. This has been Scousers Abroad, brought to you by LFC Transfer. We'll catch you next time. Take care.
Peace.